Well, hello. In this video, I'm going to be talking about and showing you how to install a lavatory faucet. Now, behind me here, I've got some of our most popular finishes and our most popular brands that we have out there in new construction. Down here on the end, I have a chrome single handle Moen faucet. Moen pioneered the single handle, so you're going to see that single handle on a lot of their stuff. That's kind of our base model there. And then this one here is a Peerless. This is in the oil rub bronze finish. This used to be really popular about 2 years ago, but I've started seeing some decline in it. People still ask for it, but the finish that they're typically going for now is what they call the brush nickel. Now this is a Delta DST. This is a double handle in the brush nickel. Some people call it stainless steel. Now, something you're going to notice about this one here is it's got supply lines already hooked to it. That's what's wrapped around here. So you don't have to have supply lines when you're dealing with something that's Delta that says DST. That stands for Diamond Seal Technology, and what they did was by getting rid of supply lines, they got rid of one more connection there. So this is less likely to leak because it has a reduction in the number of connections. You don't need supply lines for this one. But these are pretty much the three big popular ones. We do have some other ones that we use, but like I said, these are the most popular ones we use. Now, when installing these things, most of them are going to have some kind of little plastic nut like this. The DST ones are a little bit bigger because that shank size is a little larger because it has the supply line that comes through it. Now, there's a problem with these plastic ones. On a drop-in sink like this, or what they used to call Formica, just a wooden countertop, or the cultured marble, you're going to be all right with these. But when you get into some of the thicker granites, some of your builder grade faucets, to cut down on that cost, that shank on the bottom, this part here, is slightly shorter because in these two they did have to use the lead-free brass because there's a supply line that hooks to the bottom of that. Well, when dealing with that thick granite, we had to come up with something else, and we use these little guys. It's called a rosette washer, and then just a little flat lavatory sock nut. And as you can see, that gives you a lot more room to play with because you still have to put a supply line on. Now, back in the day, we would take these plastic ones and break the ears off and flip it upside down and basically just force it up into the little hole underneath, and then that way we had just that little extra bit of room to get that supply line on. So if you're doing a service or remodeling something, you're going to have a faucet already there, and that can be the hardest part of the job, is removing the old faucet, especially if it's been there for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I've actually had to cut some off before because the little nuts were so seized up, there was nothing that was going to get them to move, and you just cut through the nut without damaging your basin. Well, let's get started. Alright, let's talk about some of the tools you might need. If you're going to be installing lavatory faucets for a living, in new construction or service plumbing or something like that, or even if you're a homeowner and just want to spend the money and make your life easier, I highly recommend you get one of these. Now, there's a couple different companies that make these. Some of the hardware stores out there have their own brand. This one just so happens to be a Rigid. I'm a big fan of them. But what this is a lavatory installing tool, and it's got different pieces to it. This helps you with your supply lines. It's also got a thing that can help you turn your stops on and off. It's a pretty neat little doodad, and it's got a tub tool and a basket strainer tool on the end of it, where you can get in and tighten a tub drain with that. But what we'll primarily be using it for, we're going to take that tub drain piece out, and you see how this has got like this little castle deal going on with it? Well, that's for these guys. and that's gonna basically sit right in there, and you can catch the edges of that nut and screw it on. Now if you were to be using the rosette and the little flat nut, you pretty much gonna have to have something like this, because that little flat nut will go right in there and you can tighten it up with that. These things are going to be really, really hard to get a pair of pliers on, or you could get what they call a basin wrench, but since I got this guy, I actually gave my basin wrench to somebody and I haven't missed it, so I'd go ahead and pick one of those up. The other thing you might need is just a pair of channel lock pliers. These are mine. They actually call these well pump pliers because of the different angle on the front of them, but I really enjoy this particular type of tongue and groove pliers. Well, when you get your faucet out of the box, you're going to notice a couple things. It's going to have these nuts screwed on there. It's probably going to have a piece of cardboard right here, so you got to undo the nuts to take it out of the box. There's this little grommet piece here. Now, this is designed to seal the faucet to the top of the sink. Now, when dealing with this style, a drop-in like this, or cultured marble or something like that, this pretty much is going to do the job for you. This is going to be your seal, and you're not really going to have to worry about anything. But when we're doing granite, granite's flat. This has a nice little bevel, so if water gets up here, it's either going to roll to the back or it's going to roll down into the basin here, and you're not going to be dealing with with a whole lot of water trying to seep down. But granite is flat, and when you get water on granite, it's just going to sit there. It's not going to go anywhere. So what I like to do, and like I said, if you're doing this for a living, anything you can do to prevent a leak, because you're going to be rushing along with this, especially if you're getting paid per fixture. You can really make some money doing that, but you got to be fast. What I normally do is get some kind of caulk. We like the stuff in the tube, but you can use a silicone if you wanted to, but silicone's a little harder to clean up. This stuff here is water-based and it works just well. But it's just tub and tile caulk, white. You can also get this in clear if you don't want to see the white. But there's a little groove right here, and what I normally do is squirt some caulk all down in that little groove to get me going. But that's going to fit right on your faucet like that, and then you're going to place your faucet on your vessel or basin, and that's to get us started. Now we're going to go underneath, and when you do this, you're going to want to go down underneath, tighten things up, come up to the top, maybe bump this around a little bit, because people don't know plumbing per se, but they know straight, and they know if it looks good. And that's most of your job when you're a trim out style plumber and you're setting faucets and toilets and things. It's mostly about what it looks like. So let's go tighten this thing up. Now we're underneath, and as you can see, we've got the shanks hanging down here for this faucet, and you can kind of line it up on these holes when you're looking at it to make sure you're straight. But you're going to take your plastic nuts and you're just going to start them by hand, and they should just spin right on up there. If it doesn't thread on real smoothly, then you've probably cross-threaded it, but there's not a whole lot of threads to these things, so it's just going to screw up on there like that. And this is where that lav tool comes in handy. You take that tub tool part out of it, and you're going to tighten it up a little bit. Now while you're doing this, get it kind of halfway tight, and then you're going to want to go up and look and make sure it's not crooked. You're going to want to pop up here and make sure this thing is straight. It's a little off, but now that I've kind of got it halfway snug underneath, I can bump it around a little bit and then tighten it up. The other thing you want to pay attention to is that grommet. Make sure that thing is sitting down right. Now if you've put the the caulk underneath it, it's going to be squeezing out white caulk, and you're going to have to get a wet rag and wipe that stuff up really good. But yeah, make sure that grommet's not flipped to one side or the other. When you tighten those screws, the nuts underneath, make sure you do it kind of a little bit on this side, a little bit on that side. Don't just crank down on one and then try to screw the other one in. You're going to have this thing all kicked up weird. But yeah, make sure it's in line with the drain and your porcelator, which is this little overflow thing here. Now that you're good and straight, you're just going to go ahead and tighten this guy on up. Sometimes this lab tool can be kind of tricky, but you're going to go ahead and tighten that on up. And then we can go ahead and add our supply lines. Now, remember, always put this stuff on by hand first. Now, the neat thing about your lav tool, and the reason why it's got this split right here, is because you can fit it up on, hold on, let me get the right socket here. You can slide it up over that supply line like that and get on here and tighten that thing up. Now remember, these guys have a rubber little washer in there, so it doesn't need to be tight. You're going to want it good and snug, but not necessarily too tight. See how neat that tool is? I mean, you could try to get in here and fight with a pair of pliers, but the problem you got is you're going to be knocking the back of this sink, and you're going to be knocking the back of the cabinet. You can get a smaller set of pliers, they'll work, or that lav basin wrench. But if you're going to buy a tool, get one of these. Where are we? Get one of these. It's really neat. The last part of installing your lavatory faucet, you're going to hook up your supply lines. Now, always start these things by hand. You don't want to cross thread it. If you're having a little trouble, you can always turn this backwards. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. You can always turn it backwards a little bit till you hear it click, and you can kind of feel it with your hand. You feel that nut drop right down in the threads, and then you can start threading it in the other direction. That's an old trick. But yeah, you can spin it backwards till you feel it click, and then you know you're lined up. Now, for this, you can use a wrench. I've seen some people carry around adjustable wrenches. I hate adjustable wrenches. They slip. But you can put a wrench or get your pliers. And remember, these things do have little rubber washers inside of here. Now, we're dealing with PEX here, and PEX is flexible, so this will bounce all around like that. If you've got CPVC in the wall, if you've got that hard plastic yellow pipe, yellowish, you're going to want to hold this stop as tightly as you can when you do this, because if this was CPVC, especially old CPVC, and you're sitting here just cranking down on it like that, you can pop that stop right off of there, and most of the time the water's on and you've got a mess, and then you're going to have to replace that stop. So always hold your stop when you're doing this. PEX will let you bounce around a little bit, and you're not going to be tightening this down so much that you're really bending that out of the way. But that's it. That's your supply lines. I normally do this part first before messing with any of this drain assembly, because it's behind everything. And now you're done with all of this, and now you can move on to your drain. But we're going to do that in another video. Thanks a lot. I hope you learned a little something from this, and I hope you watch my next one.